Hello and welcome to Coffee with Dr. Carla. I'm Dr. Carla. This is Michaela, and we are super glad that you are here today. Our goal is to talk about mental health related issues and hopefully start to end the stigma surrounding them. And so today's topic definitely has a lot of stigma surrounding it. So, mental health in the Black community. Um, why do you think there's so much stigma? What do from your perspective, what do you see happening?
A lot of negative connotation and this idea of kind of being crazy and the just the overall connotation of that.
Okay. And what do you, and then I guess I wonder, you know, beyond that, because some of those stigmas are, ones that go across all cultures, right?
Universal.
But what do you think might be more specific? Like, why do you think the Black community specifically,
hmm
you know, is holding on to or perceiving mental health in that erroneous way?
hmm because it's not normal to seek help. It's not normal to need help and to seek professional help. It's typically swept under the rug, or it's a part of the religion aspect where we go and pray it away or go to church or things of that nature. So I think that is where it kind of ties into the specific culture versus it being universal.
And then, I mean, let's be honest, um, there's a pretty significant history where, you put it nicely. Well, there was a bunch of really jerky people out there, deciding that they were going to do all sorts of crazy experiments
Mhm.
on Black people, and so I, I mean, I don't know if
Mhm.
that was my background, that my race, my culture. I'm not sure how much I would trust
Exactly.
uh, the medical community, and mental
Mhm.
health is part of that medical community. So, I mean, I totally get that as well.
Yeah, for sure. The lack of trust is definitely a big thing in all professions, especially mental health. Because how do we know they're not going to be judged? How do they know this is not going to count against them in the future? And how do they know it's going to be kept confidential and things of all of that nature? So I definitely believe trust is a bigger issue as well.
Okay, and so you've decided to go into this field,
Mhm.
and so I guess I'm curious, like what are you hoping to be able to do, um, knowing these obstacles, these stigmas
Mhm.
that exist, right? Um, what are you hoping to be able to do to kind of help alleviate some of that or help people access the help that they might need?
Mhm. Well, one thing that does come to mind is creating a safe space. So with creating a space, I feel like over time being my authentic self and creating this space where people feel welcome to come in and discuss and talk about mental health is the first thing. I know it doesn't have to be personal off bat, but just understanding how mental health works, understanding how it can affect you if you're not tending to it in self-care or ignoring it or putting it under the rug. So things of that nature, and I do want to start in like the teenage area because I feel like a lot of the Chicago youth teens struggle with mental health, and this is where it kind of not necessarily starts. Mental health starts obviously earlier than that, but it's gaining more of an understanding in that age group, so that way as they're growing older they can potentially put that information to others and kind of navigate through that.
Kind of squash some of that,
Yeah.
some of those myths and
hmm
help them understand that, you know, you're not crazy if you ask
exactly.
somebody to help you.
hmm and
Okay,
it's okay to be open and vulnerable with your emotions because I feel like that is another thing where the vulnerability of it makes you not want to trust people as well.
sure. I mean, I know it's scary, like just even for me personally. So I
Mhm,
could just imagine, if everybody in your family's like, oh, you really shouldn't do that,
mhm,
or, you mentioned religion. If your faith family's like, oh, you must not be praying hard enough or
mhm.
whatever, right? I could see the hesitancy for sure.
Exactly. Especially navigating it with your family. I feel like religion is a obviously a bigger aspect within your family. If that's your family dynamic and how you've grown up, how do you kind of break away from that when that is all you've known over time?
Right, right. Um, when you think about like all the different dynamics that play out in the Black community in regards to mental health. Um, what might you like, what's the one thing you hope people walk away with today? Like, what's that one thing that you know, that you hope that people will hear when they're done listening to this episode?
Um, that it's okay to seek help. Even if the help comes from someone who doesn't look like me, if it, I know sometimes that's comfort in someone who looks like yourself when it comes to therapy and mental health and just having the conversation about it. But it's okay to be open about it, and finding what works for you specifically and not others or what you believe it should look like. It's an individualized experience. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really important because, um, there's so many therapists out there that are good, but they're not
Mhm,
necessarily a good fit for you,
mhm,
right? So, like, I feel like I do a good job, as a therapist,
mhm,
but my style, my way of doing things is not for everybody,
exactly.
right? And I know that when people call the cognitive clinic, Eva, our business manager, when she answers the phone and she talks to these folks, she's always telling them, like, if this doesn't work out the way you want to, call
Mhm,
me because we want you to have the best fit,
exactly.
right? Like, we don't want you to be, in therapy for years suffering because you don't think that you have the right to seek somebody else
Mhm,
out, right? Um, and that's got to be pretty scary if you're really leery about even starting to the
mhm,
journey, and then you come across somebody who maybe isn't a good fit,
mhm.
and then you have to try again.
And it doesn't always take that one try. It can take multiple tries. So I think that is another thing involved with it is identifying what works for you and being okay with it not working out the first time, maybe
Right,
not the second time, but maybe third time's a charm.
right. Cool. I appreciate you talking with me today.
Mm.
So remember, you can change your thoughts, discover your potential, and transform your life by focusing on your overall well-being. So until next time, continue working on being the best you possible.